What is up, y'all? Back again with another video. This one's not going to be a real long one. Slightly less of a how-to and more of just a project update, because this one's pretty self-explanatory, but I like to kind of try and keep you up with everything I'm doing, especially on the green car, since this is more of my project car than the other one. So, you know, both to A, keep you guys up to date, and, you know, so if I want to look back at some point, I can look at these videos and see what all I've done and when I did it and blah, blah, blah. So, I did get a little bit ahead of myself and pulled them out before I recorded the video because I didn't think about it, but as you can see, I pulled out these two little fog light trim pieces. Now, I didn't sand these down or anything. This is what they looked like when I pulled them out. I'm imagining that somebody before me painted them because they look like they were almost like a translucent fake light looking material or something. I don't know, like a reflector lens type material, or I don't know, maybe they came that way and they just faded over time, so I don't really know. But so I pulled those out. For reference, this is where they bolt in at, down there on both sides. Like I said, they were kind of looking a little rough, and while I didn't make a video on it, I did recently paint the wiper arms, which I had quite a bit of trouble getting off. You can see some anti-seize where I put it on the wipers to keep them from seizing up next time. But so I painted those. The emblem, which I'm sure you can look back at previous videos and see looked like crap, I pulled that off, which unfortunately now I have holes in the hood. I will probably patch those the same way that I patched the holes in the trunk. So I'll leave a link up in the corner to a previous video that you can check out on that. I'll just put a sticker over it and cover it up, or maybe I'll get a nice red Honda badge like the Type R one. I don't know, I haven't completely decided on that yet. But as I said, I kind of figured that since I painted the wiper arms and they really made quite a big visual difference on the front, you wouldn't think something as small as wiper arms would make a big difference, but just sanding those down and painting them black because they were real faded, had a lot of metal showing through. So I figured the next logical step is to do those trim pieces, and then as soon as I can get around to it and I have a little time and some nice weather, I'm going to start sanding down some of the faulty paint spots and dents and shit like that, and start cleaning that up and get the body looking halfway decent. Alrighty, so progress update. This one is more or less sanded and prepped enough. There is still just a tiny little bit of like silicone or something down here. It looks like they had like a clear silicone in it. There's still quite a bit more left in this one that's kind of hard to see. I don't know why they had it in there. Actually, what I did to get most of the actual paint off was I took, you can actually see the shreds of paint all over the floor, or the ground out here. I took a scraper and I just carefully applied even pressure and scraped most of the paint off with this, because since I was sanding it and repainting it, I really wasn't all that concerned about scratching it up or anything. So another thing, you can see it real good on this one, they had a whole bunch of what looks like JB Weld or something all over the inside, and I don't really know why, because they don't look cracked. So I'm kind of just sanding all of it up, even though that's on the back side and you won't see it. I'm cleaning a little bit of that up, at least enough to make it presentable and smooth. So the next step, I still have to sand this one. I've only hit this one with the razor blade. I gotta finish getting the silicone out and sand this one. I got almost this one all the way done. I do need to, I had hit this one with 400 grit. The next, or no, 220 grit. The next step is I'm going to hit it with some 400 grit and then some Scotch-Brite. And then I have, I'll show you the can in a little bit, I have some specialized spray paint inside. I'm just going to paint them black again, but it's like a Krylon or Rust-Oleum Fusion. I'll show you the can when I get it out later. But it's supposed to be specially formulated to better adhere to plastic. So I'm hoping that between the sanding and the Scotch-Brite and all that, plus the specialized spray paint, hopefully the paint will adhere better this time. It doesn't really look like they were sanded last time, so I'm guessing somebody just took them off, cleaned them, spray painted them, and put them back on. So hopefully they'll turn out a little bit nicer this time. The hardware is a little rusty, so I'm also going to wire brush them and then stick them in a piece of cardboard and spray paint the heads of those black too, just to make them a little nicer. Alrighty, so I actually am done sanding and prepping the other pieces, but they're out in the car. I'll show you that in a minute. Right now I'm taking a wire brush and I'm cleaning the heads of these screws because I'm going to spray paint them as well, so you don't get a bunch of rusty screws sitting out against a nice painted piece. So I'm going to hit these with a wire brush, and then I'm going to stick them in a box or something like that so they stand up on end, and I can just hit them with some nice spray paint. I have some spray paint back here that is supposed to be specially formulated for pieces that have light rust. So I'm going to knock off as much of the rust I can and hit that with that because it's a black spray paint, so it should look okay. Granted, they're going to get a little chipped up when you put the screwdriver in them, but it ought to look better than having a rusty piece there. Now, if I was really going all out with these screws rather than painting them, I would just go get, you can buy black trim screws that should be roughly about that size. And I may do that still. I think I have some at work, but for the time being, I'm just going to paint these black. Alrighty, so this is actually the stuff that I was talking about. Krylon rust through, eliminates rust, blah blah blah. I don't know how well it shows up. I've knocked a good deal of the rust off of the heads of these screws, which is the only part I'm really worried about. So, I don't know if this crap actually does anything different than regular Rust-Oleum or whatever, but I figure I have it. It's pretty much a full can. Might as well try and use it. Alrighty, so I'm hoping this all shows up pretty well. Normally I would do this outside, but it's a little chilly and breezy outside today, and spray painting in the wind is not a good idea. So these have all been sanded. I started with 220 grit and then I moved up to 400 grit, again because that's what I had. Now you'll notice a reoccurring theme here. A lot of this is because it's what I had laying around. I'm not trying to spend a bunch of money doing this project and they look like crap, so I figured I could probably use what I had sitting around to make them look a little nicer. If I was really worried about it, I would probably have just gone out and bought all new trim pieces and, you know, painted them fresh, brand new, or for that matter have gone out and bought carbon fiber ones or something like that. As you saw, we put the first coat down on this. I'll probably do maybe one, possibly two more coats. And then we got these over here. I got them up on top of my toolbox. I covered the toolbox with some cardboard and all, again, to try and avoid the breeze. I sanded these down with the two different grits that I mentioned, and then I took them inside. I rinsed them in just plain warm water, let them air dry, paper towel dried them, and then let them air dry a little bit more. And they're not perfect, but I think for the purposes of what we're trying to accomplish here, they should be just fine. So I am going to see if I can spray paint these. Alrighty, so I laid down the first light coat on here. The lighting in here is obviously less than ideal, but I'll get them out in the sunlight after they're done and get you a better picture of them. The first coat you always want to go kind of light. Even this is probably a tad heavier than it really needed to be, but there's that. While we're waiting though, I never actually showed you the paint that I was using. This is paint that I had sitting around. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but as you can see, the obvious selling point to this is that apparently it bonds well to plastic. You know, it mentions it like 3 or 4 times on the thing, so. Alrighty, so I'm finished spray painting pretty much everything. I did about 3 coats on everything with the different spray paints. There's 3 coats on these, which is funny because I can see the degassing in the lens here, but I can't actually see it in person. But anyway, I did 3 coats on these. They're not showing up real well. You'll see them once they're installed. And I did about 3 coats on these with the Fusion plastic spray paint. Granted, the paint is not dry yet, but I'm actually, thus far, pretty impressed at how smooth the paint has turned out. So, either way, I think they'll look better than they did previously where the paint was falling off. But I'm going to let these sit in here and dry for a few hours because it's cold and chilly and slightly windy outside. Plus, there's a slight chance of rain later in the day. So I want to make sure these are good and dry before I attempt to put them on, so I'm going to let them sit in here for at least a few hours. Weather permitting, I'll put them on later today. If not later today, then probably tomorrow. Okay, so I got the trim pieces reinstalled with the painted screws and everything. I'm using my microphone, so hopefully you're hearing me and not the 9 million cars going by, because my car is parked on the side of the street right now. Should be a pretty good test of the microphone, because the first 2/3 of this video was shot without the microphone, and this portion is with the microphone. So if the audio is noticeably better, we'll find out. But there you go. That's it right there. They came out a little flatter than I had wanted. I had wanted a little bit more gloss, but I think they look pretty good. And there's the overall package. So, not a huge difference, but it's just a little detail that adds to the overall package. They're not perfect, but the name of the project is Project Track Rat, so I mean, I'm not going for perfection here. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Check me out on all my social medias. They're all linked in the description down below. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel to keep up on the updates. And I guess I'll catch y'all on the next one. Thank you for tuning in.